Hello.
Yes, sir, it is visible
Okay.
and audible.
Okay, I think I should start now. This is the last lecture of this session. Am I audible to all of you?
Yes.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yes, sir, you are audible.
So, since you have listened to many eminent speakers talking to you about personal growth as a teacher and technical aspects which a teacher should have for effective teaching, I would like to tell you in my lecture a mix of these two aspects. If you remember in the talk of Professor K. Srinidhi, he was also talking about Krishna and Bhagavad Gita. Inspired by him, I think I should also tell you something from the Bhagavad Gita. But before that, let me tell you that I am a faculty member from Department of Physics. Therefore, it is obvious that I shall discuss with you the technical aspects. But before that, I shall tell you one slok from Bhagavad Gita. Though the literature is too old, still the teaching which we get from it is relevant in today's time. So here is the slok which I want to show to you. The sloka says, ध्यायतो विषयान पुंसः संगस्तेषुपजायते संगात संजायते कामः कामाद क्रोधो भिजायते. So I will be using both a mix of Hindi and English. The first line says, ध्यायतो विषयान पुंसः. इसका अर्थ है विषयों का ध्यान करने से, संगस्तेषुपजायते, उनमें आसक्ति उत्पन्न हो जाती है. तो विषय क्या है? विषयों का ध्यान करने से विषय क्या होते हैं? तो हम सभी जानते हैं कि हम सभी लोग इस सारी दुनिया से, सारे जगत से जो हमारा इंटरेक्शन होता है वो 5 ज्ञानेंद्रियों के माध्यम से होता है. वो कौन कौन सी 5 ज्ञानेंद्रियां हैं? आंख, नाक, कान, जिह्वा और त्वचा, स्किन. इन 5 ज्ञानेंद्रियों के माध्यम से हम सारे संसार से इंटरैक्ट करते हैं. और इन 5 ज्ञानेंद्रियों के 5 विषय हैं. वो क्या विषय हैं? जैसे हमारी सबसे पहली ज्ञानेंद्रिय, जब
आजकल एडमिशन चलिए भैया यूनिवर्सिटी दी ना तो छुट्टियां लेते लगाई थी ना रोस्टर.
I request you to please mute. तो हमारी पहली ज्ञानेंद्रिय है हमारी आंख। तो आंख का विषय क्या है? दृश्य, देखना। हमारी दूसरी ज्ञानेंद्रिय है नाक।
Rajnish sir,
यस,
sorry to interrupt sir. A yellow window is coming in between the slide and it says please move this window out of shared application.
okay,
It is
okay.
constantly coming on every slide sir.
Let me try to fix it. Shall I do this? Is it coming still now?
Now it is not coming. Can you do it full screen again?
Let me do it. Is it
Yeah,
okay?
perfect. Now it is not coming sir.
Okay. So I was trying to tell you that the slok from Bhagavad Gita, it says ध्यायतो विषयान पुंसः संगस्तेषुपजायते। मैंने आपको बताया कि मनुष्य के शरीर में 5 ज्ञानेंद्रियां हैं जिनकी सहायता से वो सारी दुनिया से, सारे जगत से इंटरेक्शन करता है। और इन 5 ज्ञानेंद्रियों के 5 विषय हैं। पहली ज्ञानेंद्रिय आंख, जिसका विषय है दृश्य। दूसरी ज्ञानेंद्रिय है हमारी नाक, जिसका विषय है गंध या सुगंध। तीसरी ज्ञानेंद्रिय है हमारे कान, जिनका विषय है शब्द। और चौथी ज्ञानेंद्रिय है हमारी जिह्वा, जिसे रसना भी कहते हैं, इसका विषय है स्वाद। और पांचवी ज्ञानेंद्रिय है त्वचा, स्किन, इसका विषय है स्पर्श। तो भगवत गीता कहती है इस श्लोक के माध्यम से कि जब कभी भी हम इंद्रिय से जुड़े हुए विषयों का ध्यान करते हैं तो हमारी उनमें आसक्ति उत्पन्न हो जाती है। विषय का यूज करना, उसका उपयोग करना, शब्द को सुनना, संगीत को सुनना, अच्छा भोजन करना, स्वाद ग्रहण करना, ये सारी चीजें जो तो ठीक हैं, लेकिन जब हम इनका मनन करने बैठते हैं, इनका ध्यान करने बैठते हैं, इनका कंटेम्पलेशन करते हैं, ऐसा करने से हम इनमें चिपक जाते हैं, हमारी इनमें आसक्ति उत्पन्न हो जाती है। देखिए कैसे, जिस प्रकार से भगवत गीता कहती है कि किसी भी मनुष्य का स्वभाव एक दर्पण की तरीके से होना चाहिए। दर्पण का क्या गुण है कि अगर दर्पण के सामने कोई व्यक्ति, कोई बहुत ही सुंदर व्यक्ति उसके सामने जाता है, अगर दर्पण के सामने कोई बहुत सुंदर व्यक्ति उसके सामने जाता है तो दर्पण क्या करेगा, उसको, वो जैसा सुंदर व्यक्ति है उसको वैसा ही दिखाई देगा। और जैसे ही उस व्यक्ति को दर्पण के सामने से हटा लिया जाए, दर्पण फिर बिल्कुल वैसे का वैसा, उसमें सुंदर व्यक्ति की सुंदरता कोई भी चिपक नहीं जाती। ठीक इसी प्रकार से अगर कोई कुरूप व्यक्ति किसी दर्पण के सामने जाता है तो वो दर्पण उस व्यक्ति को बिल्कुल वैसा ही दिखाई देगा जैसा वो उसका चेहरा है। ऐसे ही उस व्यक्ति को सामने से हटा लिया जाएगा।
Sir, disturbance. Sorry, excuse me, sir. Sir, somebody's mic on.
I request all the participants to please mute your mic. I don't know who is speaking. Let me check it.
Dr. Suresh, can you mute yourself? Dr. Suresh.
Actually, host can mute everyone, right?
Yes, yes, I am doing.
Host can mute everyone.
Is it okay now?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
But that yellow window is still little bit coming.
So I was talking to you about it has disturbed again and again. So मैं बता रहा था आपको कि व्यक्ति का स्वभाव एक दर्पण की तरीके से होना चाहिए। जिस प्रकार से दर्पण में जो चीज जिस रूप में प्रस्तुत की जाती है वो उसको उसी रूप में दिखाई देता है, और जैसे ही उस दर्पण के सामने से वो वस्तु हट जाती है, उस दर्पण में कोई भी वस्तु चिपकी नहीं रह जाती। ना अच्छे व्यक्ति की अच्छाई और ना ही खराब व्यक्ति की खराबी उसमें चिपकी रह जाती है। इसी प्रकार से किसी भी व्यक्ति का स्वभाव, किसी भी व्यक्ति का अंतःकरण ऐसा दर्पण की तरीके से होना चाहिए, और ये तभी संभव है जब हम विषय से संबंधित, ज्ञानेंद्रियों से संबंधित विषयों का कंटेम्पलेशन नहीं करें। और अगर हम ऐसा करते हैं तो हमें दिक्कत क्या होगी, क्या समस्या आएगी, उसके बारे में आगे की लाइन में कहा जाता है कि संगात संजायते कामः कामात् क्रोधो भिजायते। तो पहली लाइन में कहा गया ध्यायतो विषयान पुंसः संगस्ते सुपजायते। अगर आप विषयों का ध्यान करेंगे तो आप उनमें चिपक जाएंगे, और अगर आप उनमें चिपक गए, उनमें आपकी आसक्ति उत्पन्न होगी, तो उससे क्या होगा, संगात संजायते कामः, आपके अंदर कामना उत्पन्न होगी उस चीज को प्राप्त करने की। अच्छा भोजन किया हमने, ठीक है, लेकिन जब हम उसका कंटेम्पलेशन करेंगे तो हमारे मन में बार बार ऐसा विचार आएगा कि वो चीज हमें दोबारा प्राप्त हो, उसको प्राप्त करने की इच्छा जागृत होगी। कामना के विषय में हम सब जानते हैं, कामना कई बार पूरी हो जाती है और बहुत बार कामना अधूरी भी रह जाती है। अगर कामना पूरी हो गई तो लोभ उत्पन्न होगा, हम चाहेंगे कि वो चीज हमारे पास हमेशा रहे, वो चीज हमें बार बार प्राप्त हो, लोभ उत्पन्न होगा। और अगर कामना पूरी नहीं हुई तो क्या होगा, कामात् क्रोधो भिजायते, कामना अगर पूरी नहीं तो उससे क्रोध उत्पन्न होगा, गुस्सा आएगा हमें बहुत तेज। गुस्सा आने से क्या होगा, क्रोध आने से क्या होगा, क्रोधात् भवति सम्मोहः, सम्मोहात् स्मृति विभ्रमः, स्मृति भ्रंशात् बुद्धिनाशो, बुद्धिनाशात् प्रणश्यति। क्रोध होने से हम सम्मोहित हो जाएंगे, हमारा माइंड, हमारा मस्तिष्क, हमारा दिमाग क्रोध के वशीभूत हो जाएगा, हम सम्मोहित हो जाएंगे। कहते हैं ना, क्रोध में व्यक्ति का बुद्धि काम नहीं करती, क्रोध के वशीभूत हो गए हम, तो सम्मोहित मन हो गया हमारा। क्रोध से सम्मोहित हो जाने के बाद क्या होगा, स्मृति विभ्रमा, सम्मोहात स्मृति विभ्रमा। अगर हम क्रोध से वशीभूत हो गए तो हमारी स्मृति नष्ट हो जाएगी। किस चीज की स्मृति, कि सही क्या है और गलत क्या है, ये जो हमारे स्मृति पटल पर अंकित हैं जो बातें, वो नष्ट हो जाएगा, हमें पता ही नहीं है कि सही क्या है और गलत क्या है। और जब ऐसा होगा तब क्या होगा, स्मृति भ्रंशात् बुद्धिनाशो, बुद्धि कहते हैं इंटेलेक्ट को, जो चुनाव करती है सही और गलत क्या है उसमें से सेलेक्ट करने के लिए। तो अगर हमें ये पता ही नहीं कि सही और गलत है क्या, तो बुद्धि उसमें चुनाव किसका करेगी। स्मृति भ्रंशात् बुद्धिनाशो, बुद्धिनाशात् प्रणश्यति। और जिस व्यक्ति की बुद्धि ही नष्ट हो जाए उस व्यक्ति का तो सब कुछ ही नष्ट हो जाता है। ये श्लोक मुझे व्यक्तिगत तौर पर बहुत प्रिय है और मैं इससे बहुत कुछ सीखता हूँ, इस वजह से मैंने सोचा कि मैं आप लोगों के साथ इसको शेयर भी करूँ। और चूंकि आज के 2 ऐसे लेक्चर हुए जिनमें भगवद गीता पर आधारित बातें की गई, इसलिए मैंने इसको आप लोगों के सामने प्रस्तुत किया है। और देखिए इससे हमें क्या टीचिंग्स मिलती हैं। सिंपली द मियर कॉन्टेम्पलेशन ऑफ सेंसरी ऑब्जेक्ट्स लीड्स टू द अटैचमेंट। This is from the first sloka which I told you. And this attachment may lead to desire. Desire, as I told you, that they may be fulfilled, they may not be fulfilled. And non-fulfillment of the desires will lead to anger. And once there is anger, anger will lead to hypnosis. We will be confused. There will be completely lost of memory of right and wrong. This hypnosis will lead to the bewildering of the intellect. Intellect ये तय नहीं कर पाएगी कि सही क्या है और गलत क्या है, उसमें चुनाव किसका करें। And bewildered intellect will lead to the destruction of a human being. So these are the teachings which we get from one particular slok of Bhagavad Gita. So now I will start with another story to move towards the ICT and its use in teaching and learning. But before that, I am going to tell you one story that my teacher told to me when I was in high school. As I told you in the very beginning that I am a person from physics background. So my teacher who taught me physics in high school, he used to tell me a story to all the students to give an idea about the concepts of polarization of light. So from the participants who are from science background, perhaps they know the concept of polarization of light is the most difficult concept for a student to learn at high school. So to give an idea about what polarization of light is, my teacher used to tell me a story of Sahasrabahu. As the name itself says, Sahasrabahu, the meaning of Sahasra is 1000. So Sahasrabahu was a demon and he was having 1000 hands attached to him. You can imagine a person, you can see here in this image also, a person who has 1000 hands attached with him. So he looks like this. Once there was a fight of Sahasrabahu with Parashuram. Parasuram used to have an axe with him, and when there was a fight between Parasuram and Sahasrabahu, what Parasuram did? He chopped off all the hands of Sahasrabahu and left only two. Between the fight of Sahasrabahu and Parasuram, Parasuram chopped off all his hands and retained only the two. So he was having left and right hand. This is precisely what the polarization of light is. I am going to tell you what it is for the people who are non-science background, who are from non-science background. See, this is an electromagnetic wave and it consists of electric vectors. And these electric vectors, in case of unpolarized light, these electric vectors are perpendicular to the direction of propagation of light and in all possible directions. See, so this is a kind of Sahasrabahu who is having 1000 hands attached to him. So this is unpolarized light in which electric vectors are in all possible directions. When this unpolarized light is allowed to fall on a polaroid, after passing through this polaroid, all the electric vectors will be chopped off and only one direction, up and down, that will be retained with the light. So we call it linearly polarized light, and this is called unpolarized light. So with the help of here, the polaroid is the Parasuram and this is Sahasrabahu. After a fight between the Parasuram and Sahasrabahu, or light passing from the polaroid, we get polarized light or a two-handed Sahasrabahu. So this beautiful concept of polarization of light can be instilled in the mind of students by telling to the students a story from the mythology. Remember, these things were taught to me some 20 years back when we were not equipped with so modern techniques like we have today, the ICT tools. My idea is if a faculty member some 20 years back can depict the story and relate it with the difficult concept of polarization of light, to instill the idea into the minds of the students, why the people, the faculty members of today's generation like us, who are well equipped with modern ICT tools, cannot do a better idea, cannot have a better idea to instill the concept of many other difficult scientific phenomenon or non-scientific phenomenon also. So to give you an idea what tools we have today, I am starting with the ICT. So the ICT is basically an acronym. It is Information and Communication Technology. It is the amalgamation of two words. The one is information technology and another one is communication technology. When we join these two terms, the common term is information and communication technology. So what is information technology? Information technology is the study or the use of electronic equipment, particularly the computers, for storing, analyzing, and sending out the information. Whereas the communication technology is the process of sending and receiving the information. So Information technology is the use of electronic equipment, particularly computers, for storing, analyzing, and sending out information, whereas communication technology is what? It is the process of sending and receiving the information. And combining these two, we call ICT. As per the UNESCO, UNESCO has also defined the term ICT as the forms of technology that are used to transmit, process, store, create, display, share, or exchange the information by electronic means. This is called ICT as per the definition of UNESCO. And we all know that it is evolving with very fast pace. It is evolving with very fast pace. If we talk to our grandparents today, they will tell you that uh, at their time they were not having telephones. Our grandparents grew up in a society with no telephones, whereas our parents grew up in a society in which the radio was the first and television was the last source of information. We live in the world of internet, and the new generation, including us also, in the world of wireless. So you can see how fast the evolution of ICT is taking place, and we can divide the phases of ICT evolution in 5 different phases. First of all, we call it a computer. The first phase is identified with the creation of electromagnetic calculator during World War II. Its weight was 5 tons. Can you imagine how big it was? Its weight was 5 tons, and this is the first phase of ICT evolution. We call it computer. And after the invention of the transistors in 1947 by John Bardeen, it led to the development of small and versatile computers. So the first phase is computer. Then came the second phase of ICT evolution. It is associated with the development of personal computers during 1970s. Development of chip technology and manufacturing magnetic disks transformed huge computers into desktops, which we call as personal computers. So this was the second phase of evolution. Then came the third phase of ICT evolution as the microprocessor. Microprocessor is a multi-purpose programmable device that accepts digital data as input, process it according to the instructions stored in its memory, and provides results as output. This is the third phase of ICT evolution. The fourth phase is about the networking. We call it internet. It is around networking. Starting from connecting computers within a small geographic area. Initially, the networking was in a small geographic area in the field of defense and education, to connecting the computers worldwide, resulting in internet as a landmark development in the field of ICT. WWW, World Wide Web. And the fifth phase, which we classify as the ICT evolution, is of wireless. It is from the invention of the mobile phones. The initial mobile phones were large and bulky. Reduction in the size has been accompanied by a greatly expanded range of functions. Now we all know mobile phones are used not only for talking, but for transmitting messages, pictures, music browsing, and navigation. We use mobile phones. So these are the 5 different phases of the ICT evolution. Before proceeding further, let me tell you a common difference between data and information. A data refers to the facts, actual facts, events, activities, and transactions which have been recorded. It is a raw material from which we process the information. As a teacher, suppose I go in my class, we handle an enormous amount of data. When we enter in a class, the class is composed of, suppose 40 boys are there, 30 girls are there. So we handle a large amount of data. This thing that my class include 40 boys and 30 girls, it is the data which I have. But to extract information, what will be the information, whether in my class number of boys are more or number of girls are more, that is what we get the information from the data which we have in our hand. These are the different role of ICT tools. Like in creation of data, we use the technology as personal computers, digital camera, scanners, smartphones. And for the processing of data, we use calculator, PCs, smartphones. And to store these data, we use CD, DVD, pen drive, microchip, and nowadays it is cloud. To display the data, we use the ICT tool as PC, TV, projector, smartphone, and for the transmission of the data, we use internet, teleconferencing, video conferencing, mobile technology, radio, and to exchange these data we use email and cell phone as ICT tools. So these are the ICT tools with the help of which large number of functions can be done. On a lighter note, you see here a recent application of ICT in modern parenting. People use cell phone to feed their child. It is on a lighter note that is common to in today's time. It is also very good for the teachers. Why? It is said that any technology which increases the rate of learning would enable the teacher to teach less and learner to learn more. With the help of modern ICT tools, we can enable the students to learn more. There is a less role of teacher. With the help of technology, we can make our students to learn more. So it is also good for the teachers. What are the objectives of the ICT? To improve teaching and learning efficiency, to motivate students to learn in a different way. If you remember, when we were kids and the three-dimensional pictures were taught by our teachers, by using two-dimensional blackboards, how difficult it was to have an idea about a three-dimensional picture. It was very difficult for the teacher also to demonstrate it, to explain it, and it was difficult for the students also to grasp it, what teacher is trying to say. But nowadays, with the help of ICT tools, a three-dimensional picture can easily be shown to the students, and different angles can be shown, different directions can be used for the projection of a 3D image. So ICT is playing a very important role there also. And it supports the process of learning, to promote skill of learning, to learn and improve learning outcomes, to communicate and collaborate. If you remember, when our teacher used to teach in a class and we want to collaborate and discuss amongst our fellow students, then how difficult it was to communicate with them. We have to go physically over there and discuss with our fellow colleagues. But nowadays, in a classroom, it has been seen that the students themselves create WhatsApp groups of their friends so that they can communicate and collaborate among themselves. So this is an importance of the ICT tools, and we have an unlimited access to the authentic resources, like with the help of NPTEL lectures, Swayam portal, YouTube videos, we can provide enormous amount of information and authentic resources to the students. Various ICT tools that are being used are, one of them is obviously internet. It is an ICT tool, very important ICT tool. We all are discussing today because of the internet. We can use interactive boards, we can use webcams, teachers, e-resources portals, research pages, and the concept of virtual laboratory. I will discuss it in coming slides. But before that, let me tell you how an interactive board is working. With the help of an interactive board, we too have in our universities, and most of you might have used it. With the help of interactive boards, we can give PowerPoint presentation. We can present webs, portfolios. We can use text with icons. We can show PowerPoint slides with or without talk. We can use any authentic tools available on the internet. So it is a board on which you can use the common way of teaching that can also be used. Apart from that, the PowerPoint presentation can also be made on the interactive boards, and there are large number of other facilities that can be utilized if interactive boards are used for teaching. Now, before moving further, let me tell you that all these things which I am discussing as an ICT tool, and not only that, the thing which I am discussing with all of you is happening because of the high speed internet. And high speed internet, to tell you why, how it has been possible nowadays to have a very high speed of internet, because of which it has been very easy for us to teach even in this COVID period. We can remotely access our students and teach them our class teachings. So how this internet speed has been increased. So some technical details I would like to show to you. Now see, this is a movie. Its name is Roti Kapda Aur Makan. It was produced by Manoj Kumar, written by Manoj Kumar, and directed by Manoj Kumar. The three essential things of life. What are they? Roti, something to eat, and kapda, something to wear, and makan, a place to live with. So these are the three essential things of life to have. Now we all know that today is the time of making a sequel of movies. So if we approach to a director and ask him that they should make another movie, a sequel of Roti Kapda Aur Makan, probably they will change the title from Roti Kapda Aur Makan to the new title, that is Roti Kapda Aur Makan or Bandwidth. So this is a very important term used in internet. Bandwidth, large amount of bandwidth is highly required to have high speed internet data. So what this bandwidth is, I am going to discuss a little bit a technical thing about it. See, initially we do radio wave communications. The frequencies which were used were of radio frequencies. See, I am telling to you something, my voice is coming to you. So it is said in technical terms, it is said that for my speech signal to be intelligibly retrievable, suppose I am saying something, if some person on the other side is receiving it, then it is sufficient to send the frequencies up to 4000 hertz, which means that my voice can be retrieved at the other end if it is limited to a frequency band of up to 4000 hertz. So this much band of frequencies from 0 to 4000 hertz is required for speech signal to be intelligibly retrievable. Initially, people were using radio wave for communication as a carrier wave. So radio waves have frequencies as high as 300 gigahertz to as low as 30 hertz. Suppose I select a range of carrier frequency from 10 to 30. From 10 to 30. I have a multiplier of 10 to the power of 5 here, 10 to the power of 5 here, to show you that we are using radio waves. So I have a band of frequency from 10 into 10 to the power of 5 hertz to 30 into 10 to the power of 5 hertz. So how much is the band which we have? From 10 to 30, it will be 30 minus 10, that is 20 into 10 to the power of 5 hertz band of frequency we have in our hand. I told you in this bullet that it is sufficient to send frequencies up to 4000 hertz for one person to communicate. Therefore, if we are using this band of frequencies, how many people can communicate together? This is 30 minus 10 into 10 to the power of 5 divided by the frequency required for one person. So this is 4000. When we do a bit calculation, we will get the answer as 500 people. This means that if we are using 30 to 10 in radio wave regime, only 500 people can communicate simultaneously. Now see how enormous change can take place if we simply change the radio wave to light wave. Light wave, if we use, we know, the science people may know that the light waves are having frequencies of the order of 10 to the power of 15 hertz. So if we select the same band 30 and 10 but in optical regime, therefore the order of the wavelength, order of the frequency will be 10 to the power of 15. Therefore, how much is the band now we have? 30, 10, 15 minus 10, 10, 15 divided by the same requirement for one person to communicate. So the answer will be, if I do a bit calculation, it will be 5 into 10 to the power of 12. 5 0 0 0 0 0 0 0 0 0 0 0 0. These many number of people can communicate simultaneously. See how important this effect is. Simply from using radio waves to optical waves, a large number of people can communicate together. This has happened because of large amount of bandwidth. Large amount of bandwidth simply by using optical waves. Nowadays, we are getting high speed internet because we are using optical waves for communication along with optical fibers. The use of optical waves along with optical fibers have made the high speed data transmission possible, high speed internet possible for all of us to access. Then there is a concept of virtual laboratory. This is also ICT tool. And if you go to the site of MHRD, you will find a link over there, the link of Amrita University. They have made several programs. They have designed several virtual laboratory tools. See, in this COVID period, most of the faculty members, you also have taught to the students their regular classes. You will be interacting with the students as you were talking in your, you were teaching in your classrooms. But the people who are from science background, they know that there is a laboratory course also for the students, which all the students are missing. And I too have many discussion from our students, that's how to perform the experiments in the laboratory. That is a very difficult thing. So here comes the concept of virtual laboratory. You can find it on MHRD's website, the detail of which is given in the next slide. And in this virtual laboratory, First of all, let me tell you, there is a difference. What is the difference between a physical laboratory and how difficult it is to establish a physical laboratory versus a virtual laboratory? So first and foremost thing is the cost. To establish a scientific laboratory, typically few lakhs of rupees are required. Whereas to establish a virtual laboratory, we do not require much more fund, only a computer and high-speed internet is required. For the availability, the physical laboratory has limited in time and space, whereas virtual laboratory, since it can be accessed by the students through internet, so it is designed for 24/7 uses. In experimentations also, in physical laboratory, we have limited options for innovation. Like we cannot go beyond a certain limit. We cannot increase current beyond a certain limit. However, in virtual laboratory, it provides wider and safer options for innovative experimentations. Who will be the intended users? In this period, the science students in all the type of college students, high school students, they all require the virtual laboratory. They need to be taught with the help of virtual laboratory, since they were not being able to access the laboratory in physical mode. So the college students, and not only in this period, even if the students are allowed to visit the laboratory physically, there are cases where it has, in our country, we have seen that the good quality laboratories are not available even in most of the schools and colleges, even in today's scenario also. So students who do not have access to good lab facilities due to lack of insufficient infrastructure and funding, they will be benefited. And high school students whose inquisitiveness will be triggered, highly motivating them to take up higher studies. Even in different engineering colleges, they will be benefited. The students who can benefit from the content and related teaching resources. Researchers in different institutes who can share, collaborate equipments and resources. So as I told you, that you can go to the site of the Education Ministry, MHRD's website. You can find the link over there. They have given that we should go https://vlab.amrita.edu. And recently, IIIT Hyderabad also provides a platform for simulation of the experiments. So if time permits, I may show you, or you can check it by yourself. When you go to the site of this vlab.amrita.edu, they will ask you for a login detail. You make a profile over there. And then depending upon which subject you are interested in, you click that subject. There is a list of number of experiments which we teach to our students physically in our laboratory. And when you click on that particular experiment, you will be shown a window where large number of options are available. Like you want to read the theory of it, you want to do the simulation of the experiment. The moment you press the button of simulation, the entire setup will be visible to you in your computer screen. And like you were doing physically, you were moving a particular knob to increase current, to decrease current, or the movement of one part of the experiment, that will be visible to you. And with the help of the mouse or the cursor, you can play with that knob. You can increase current, you can decrease current, you can displace some of the moving part of the experimental setup. That can be done. At the same time, they will also provide with you the table where you can note down the actual reading by just looking into the scale attached to the experiment, and you can see it and note down what the actual reading is. So like physically you were performing an experiment, in virtual mode you can do that experiment and take the reading. By taking the reading on your notebook, you can note it down and calculate in a similar way as it was when you were in a physical laboratory. That can be done over there also. So though it is not giving an actual feeling of the physical experiment, but it is very good also. The students who do not have access to the sophisticated instrumentations, or they do not have laboratories, if one computer is available in a college or in a school and internet is there, then those students can be familiarized with the sophisticated instruments, and they can be benefited immensely by using this ICT tool of virtual laboratory. This is available free for all the users. Then ICT is also useful in assessment. The assessment is the process of identifying, gathering, and interpreting information about students' learning. As a teacher, we also do assessment of our students. So with the help of ICT tool, it is easy to evaluate the performance of our students. We can take different measures and document the students' learning, and it basically improves the learning and also set direction for ongoing teaching and learning process. So what are the different types of the assessment? See, in ICT in the TLC lectures in this FDP program, you might have heard about the types of the assessment which we generally do. The first is a formative assessment. So we call it formative assessment. It is the assessment of the students of the class when actually the lecture is going on or the process of learning is taking place. So during that period, suppose I am teaching in my class and I interact with the students, I ask them some of the questions and have an idea about what is the understanding of a particular student, what he needs to be focused on. So such kind of assessment which takes place during the teaching itself, it is called formative assessment. The second kind of assessment is summative assessment that we all are familiar with. We all of us have done it. It is the assessment that takes place after the learning has completed, and it provides information and feedback that sums up the teaching and learning process. Most of the teachers do the third kind of assessment, but I also do it. It is called diagnostic assessment, and it is, believe me, it is an excellent idea. First of all, whenever you go to your class, the first of your lecture should be interacting with the students and trying to know what is the level of the students, what is their depth of understanding, what is their background, and if we can have an idea about what is the different level of the students, we can help them in a better way. And then there is authentic assessment. It describes the multiple forms of assessment that reflect students' learning, achievement, motivation, and attitudes on instructionally relevant classroom activities. It basically emphasizes that what students know rather than what they do not know. Then there is a performance assessment. It is the assessment which requires for a student to demonstrate something. Like I have told him some scientific concept, and if he can demonstrate or he can make some model, or he can perform something, if he is from some performing teaching level, then if he is performing something, then the assessment which is made over there, we call it the performance assessment. So various ICT tools are there to help the students, to help the faculty members, particularly in the assessment of the students. And one of the most important ICT tool for the assessment we all are familiar with is OMR, optical mark reader. Though many of the academically sound people, they criticize it that multiple choice tests are not good, but still whatever their flaws, they are mature technology that offers some distinct advantages. They tend to be reliable. Also, in comparison to some other forms of assessment, they do not require a lot of time or cost a lot of money to administer. They generate scores that are familiar to educators. See, nowadays, since it is a time of competitions, and if a large number of candidates are participating in an entrance examination and we are asking them to do to write subjective answers, how difficult it will be to give the result on time, to look for the people who can assess those answer sheets. So OMR is a really a wonderful technique to assess the students, and it is also an ICT tool. There are many other things. I'm not going into much more detail, but as an assignment for this session, I would like you to note down the two assignments. The first is, and you have to submit it onto the Google Classroom. And for those participants who are unable to upload these documents, these assignments onto the Google Classroom, they may write an email to TLC program and we can retrieve your assignment from there also. So in a half page, you have to write down what have you experienced in your own work with regards to the use of ICT. If you have noted changes in your own philosophy or practice, please describe them. So in half page, you have to write it down and submit it. Okay. And one more assignment, one more question is, if a true partnership between education and technology is inevitable, how do we as educational leaders envision our teaching environment in 5 years from now on? So you please note down these two questions, and I will also share these questions onto the Google Classroom, and you have to write half-page answers of these questions and then submit it onto the Google Classroom portal. That's all for this lecture. Thank you all for your patient hearing. I will share with you the questions that I have shown in the presentation. I will share with you and write these questions in the Google Classroom itself, where you can see them and write the answers. So if you are interested in writing here only, I am sharing the slide again with you. You can see. So this is the first question. What have you experienced in your own work with regards to the use of ICT? If you have noted changes in your own philosophy or practice, please describe them. And the second question is, if a true partnership between education and technology is inevitable, how do we as educational leaders envision our teaching environment in 5 years from now on? Hope you have noted down or taken the screenshot of it. Now I am stopping the sharing of the screen. Submission deadline is the same on Monday. See, one of the participant is writing, sir, can you explain virtual laboratory? You have mentioned it as a tool of ICT. How do Indian universities use this tool? I think I have described it, the concept of virtual laboratory. But if you want, I can show with you the virtual laboratory website, the website of Amrita University, and see here, I think that there is some distortion in the. You simply log into vlab.amrita.edu, and there you will find a portal where, depending upon which subject you are interested in, you can click that subject, and you can find a list of experiments which you want to do over there. So this is, you can do that also, because to demonstrate it again, it needs another lecture. So I think the candidate are asking, when can we submit the assignment? It is on Monday. Monday you have to submit it till, it is tomorrow. Okay, then as a physics teacher, what is your opinion about virtual laboratory, are effective tool to develop science process skill among students? See, I am telling you as a substitute of physical laboratory, but my personal thing is that there is no substitute of physical laboratory. But for the students who are not having the physical laboratory, it is not available to them, it is a very good tool. Okay, then we will leave this session, and that's all for today. Thank you all. If you have any query, you can write to me, you can write an email to me or on TLC program. That's all for today. Thank you very much.